That drive was brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Well done.
First race of the season, season 5, this is. Your first ever race in Formula E. You got into Superpole, qualified P5, but actually ended up starting P4. How were you feeling going into your first ever race in what was at the time a different championship in Formula E?
That first qualifying I did was kind of refreshing to be able to qualify that high up, but I knew that the racing was going to be difficult, and we didn't really have any simulator even at the time, so to go up against the people that have been in it since the beginning was pretty tough, and it was learning the hard way that first race as well, because we just went backwards and we had no pace. I also had a touch with the wall, I think, during that race. Things started to go a lot better after that experience.
Because coming into Formula E, obviously you're a known name in motorsport. You've got a huge fan base, and at that time you're coming off the back of racing with McLaren in Formula One. Did you find that even though you didn't have the chance to prepare as much as you perhaps would have, was there a lot of pressure on you at the time?
I wouldn't say there was a huge amount of pressure, but in racing there's always pressure to perform anyway. So I think that was kind of natural. It was refreshing to arrive in a new championship and to have an opportunity again to fight at the front.
So then going into your first ever race, how did you find Formula E? Did it differ from your expectations, the racing? What did you learn in that first race?
Yeah, that first race was quite challenging. Very different than any other racing that I was used to, because we have all these beeps in our ears that tell us how to do the energy management. They weren't necessarily set up perfectly as well during that first race, because we were still learning a lot about Formula E together with the team. So, and then you've got 20 other drivers around you that are fighting for position as well. So there was a lot going on, let's say, during those first couple of laps, and there was no real time to kind of settle in almost. So it was definitely a challenge during those first races.
So then a couple of races forward, we go to Hong Kong, your first Formula E pole position in the wet as well. Now we know that Formula E cars, they're hard enough to drive in the dry. So qualifying in the wet on a tight circuit like we see in Hong Kong. Talk us through how that was.
Yeah, Hong Kong was definitely one of the highlights, because it was my first pole position in Formula E. I remember the lap very well. Felt good. I had a lot of confidence in the car. It was very tricky conditions with a lot of water on track, but it's conditions I enjoy. I kind of like to hustle the car around on a circuit like that. Such is the competitiveness of this championship that even when you do a very good lap, it's not a guarantee that you're gonna be on pole position. So, but it's a good feeling when you know you've done a good lap.
I remember before that qualifying session, it was the first proper conversation I'd had with you that season, and you had like a glimmer of excitement in you about doing qualifying in the wet. Is wet qualifying or racing something that phases you? You must be kind of used to it growing up in Belgium, surely.
When I was younger, I wasn't necessarily the best in wet weather conditions, but then the go-kart team I was racing for, they forced me to run on slick tires in the wet. So I did a whole winter with just slick tires in the wet, and that's actually how I improved a lot of my skills, and yeah, it was probably the best school I actually had during my younger karting days.
Okay, so next big achievement, same season, Rome, first ever Formula E podium. What did that feel like at the time, that next big achievement within your Formula E career?
We've had a lot of technical issues before then. I'm not even sure if we scored a point before Rome. Kind of a bit of a relief. It was a very good weekend. We qualified, I think, third or fourth again, something like that. Yeah, I managed to have a great race. The pace was actually really good. I was very close behind Mitch and Andre, who were fighting it out that day. Yeah, finally managed to get that first podium. So it was an incredible feeling to finally get there. Actually, funny thing is that the car actually broke down after the finish line as well.
There's the third place man, Stoffel Vandoorne, and he's stopped on track with a broken drive shaft.
We kind of came very close to not making it again.
Do you feel that acted as somewhat of a defining moment in your career, your Formula E career? Kind of get the monkey off your back and think, right, now it's onwards and upwards?
Yeah, for sure. That first podium is always kind of a little bit of a change, because you have the opportunity, you have the ability to kind of get there, and also knowing that it was my first season and it was the team's first season, I immediately felt like there's great potential for the future, for the coming races, and it just always gives a boost of confidence, let's say, whenever you have a result like that.
The next season, start of season 6, you're now racing for Mercedes-Benz EQ, and it was a pretty good debut opening weekend, 2 podiums in a row, and you're driving for such a massive name in motorsport. How was it having such a great start to the season? That must have been so encouraging. Yeah,
the start with Mercedes was kind of a bit of a relief, let's say, to have those first two podiums, because we didn't really know at all where we were standing after all the winter testing. To arrive in Saudi and to have those results, I think P2 on the grid and then third in the first race and also third in the second race was a bit of a relief for the whole team as well, to see that work pay off really and to transform that into a result.
And it wasn't just the 2 podiums in that second race. So I think it was P11 to P3, wasn't it? So it was an incredible race as well. So showing that sort of pace and performance, did you know at that point, okay, this is the team I'm getting my win with?
It was the first time where I kind of started 11th or 12th or kind of further back, and where I actually managed to make up a lot of places. That was definitely a game changer for me, is starting further back and to be able to gain 8, 9, 10 positions, whatever. Definitely felt like we had a very good baseline car. There was a lot of potential in it.
And then at the end of the season, it all came to fruition. Your first win for the Mercedes-Benz EQ, and first win for you in Formula E. How was that race for you?
Berlin as a whole was a bit strange, a bit tricky. I felt like I didn't really perform at my best in the qualifying sessions, let's say. But then I always had really good races. So I knew that as soon as I nailed my qualifying again, that I had a good chance of winning the race. And the last day was kind of perfect. I mean, I had a very good qualifying session, managed to put the car on pole position, and from then on I knew that there was a possibility to go on and win the race. Still not easy, because it was a position that I had never been in. To be leading the race is kind of different than being second or third or kind of following someone, because you can save a little bit more energy when you're following someone. So it's a different strategy. It's a different tactic during the race, but yeah, we managed to pull it off perfectly. We had a great strategy. There was Nick as well. He was in the mix, was very close.
But the final honours in the final race of 6 races in 9 days goes to Stoffel Vandoorne and Mercedes.
It was a great feeling to finally get that first win, and yeah, hopefully many more to come.
Is the feeling of winning in a championship as unpredictable and competitive as Formula E? Does it mean even more getting that win, the first one?
The first win felt very, very rewarding, I would say, because it had been quite a while since I won a race, let's say. It was just a feeling that I missed so much. Like I almost didn't remember what it felt like, and yeah, now that I finally got the taste of victory back, it just gives me much more motivation to go on and to try get many more.
And that win obviously came at the end of a pretty intense season finale. You had 6 races in 9 days. How punishing was Berlin and its format for you as a driver?
I was just kind of mentally exhausted, mentally drained after that week, just because there's constant pressure. There was no days where you could kind of relax, no downtime, and just when the pressure is on all the time, once that pressure comes off, it's kind of a strange feeling, let's say. So I didn't really want to do anything whenever I finished the season.
We can't talk about Berlin and the race win without talking about that champagne moment. What happened?
Well, I don't know what happened, but I don't think I got the angle right. It was a bit of a funny moment, but I think actually people enjoyed it a lot. Maybe I might have to make it a thing now in the future.
I was filming on my phone at the time, and you just did this hilarious thing which made me laugh so much. You as you realised, you went down to see if you could pick it up, and you were like,
it's not.